getting heat back there?
I am.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to freeze right now.
Yeah, Tracy just serviced the coolant system on this too, and you know what happens when you service your coolant? What gets flushed out? Your heater core.
Oh yeah.
And that's why oftentimes, you know, when you're if your van feels like it's not putting out much heat, the minute you flush your heater core out, it could be a little too warm. Okay, that's the
A
sound.
little too warm. What's that?
Exactly.
I haven't hit that.
So, yeah, Mom, he likes Vegas heat during the summertime, and yes, that is a favorite Cops episode of mine.
Oh yeah, I talked to the black guy that was on that when I was at the airport. I says to him, you know, you look so familiar to me.
Officer T. Jenkins.
And he said, oh, that was 15 years ago. I can't believe anyone remembers that.
Officer T. Jenkins, probably.
I think that's what he was very nice.
Except to the guys that refused to show his ID and get his hands out of the pocket, so he just went like this, right to the neck, knocked the guy down.
Oh, like in Shelby County, Tennessee, when that lady tried to bite him. You do not bite me.
It actually said you were not going to do that. Yeah, freeway, not today. Yeah, freeway, not today.
It's a good thing I have Hulu through a friend of mine, because tonight the final Jeopardy's on, I think, or one of them.
The final tournament, right?
I'm telling you, Ken Jennings.
He's giving the other guy. He's giving the other guy a run for his money.
Well, don't rule out James Holzhauer yet. You know, he's good.
Yeah.
But I tell you, Ken Jennings, he may win it. I hope he does. I'm rooting for Ken Jennings.
I know, dear. I have to ease up on that a little bit, right?
But I'll be okay if the Vegas guy wins.
Yep.
Because he's that good.
Yeah, but I think they should restrict going to being a bottom feeder now, out of fairness.
Yeah. Well, I gotta tell you, I've only gotten 2 of the whole 2 or 3 days in the categories.
I haven't gotten any. I haven't gotten any.
I did get one final Jeopardy category right. One party elected George Washington, and now belongs to the Republican, Democrat, and the Liberals. They were wondering what those 2 parties were.
Oh yeah.
And I got it on final Jeopardy.
Yeah, it's getting a little too warm, so I'm gonna.
Well, whatever you need to do, I'm flexible.
And we don't need that. There. Nope, we don't need that. There we go.
And if we get there late enough before we go, let's ask if we're even going to run the vans tonight.
Okay. Well,
Because I don't even know if they're going to let us take off in this.
no, they probably will. They know you and I, Justin. They know.
That's true. I'll give you that. They do know we know what we're doing.
Yeah. And I need to
But at
slow
the
down.
same time, if they say not to.
Yep.
Although honestly, it probably would be good if we did get to go, because every year I worry about something happening, and every year you see me drive like I know what I'm doing.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it's a good thing that I worry as much as I do.
Well, but worry does what to your blood pressure, and that's already high enough as it is.
But it's also that sense of caution that keeps you safe on the road.
Yep, I'm going to actually get in the deep snow a little bit so that my chains have a little bit of padding.
So you tell me, Mark, what the line is between caution and my blood pressure. How's that sound?
Well, be confident in your abilities, but not overly so.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, things happen.
And by the way, my blood pressure since I've gotten back on the medication has gone from about 185 over 87 down to, I hope it's not an accident, but I'm not counting my, I'm hoping he's not heading to an accident.